Hi everybody, I'm going to talk to you about Chapter 11, which basically goes over human resource management. It talks about how to find and keep employees and maintain the best ones. So there's a little bit in this chapter about how to find employees, keep them motivated, how to provide them with benefits, that type of thing. It's got some good information if you really are serious about having your own corporation. It's probably a good idea to take this information under your as advisement for what needs to get done. Employees do have rights. A lot of employers would rather that they didn't, but they do. And it's always a good idea to know what laws and guidelines have to be followed so that you can keep yourself out of jeopardy and protect your employees. They are a valued and expensive resource. So we're going to get started. So I supplied you with the Zappos video to give you an idea of basically how a corporate environment works and how it helps to motivate and maintain employees in that organization. A lot of people had said in their discussion forum that they would like to work for Zappos. I mean, who wouldn't? It looks like a fun place to be. And sometimes that's really important in terms of corporate culture to make sure that there's some fun. Okay, so HR. Remember, HR does work for the organization. It does not work for you, even though you are a lot of the reason why they're there. They do represent the company. Their jobs basically is to help ensure that the organization is in fact following labor guidelines, making sure that there's benefits, trying to recruit and procure individuals to become employees, talk about how there's a parity in the workforce with regards to income levels, making sure that your employees are paid correctly so that you can lessen the risk of losing employees for lack of payment. They should be kept up to date with the laws of the workforce. There's always changing guidelines with regards to regulation. Many times the people who concern themselves with benefits, the cost of health insurance and some other benefits, employee reimbursement for tuition, that type of thing, fall into the HR category along with finance. Most employees who work in HR departments are just like everybody else. There's too few of them doing work, so they're understaffed also. There are, and they deal with constantly, a shortage of skilled, trained workers who are experienced enough to come in and start working in key areas or the organization. So there's always the need for having to expand to global markets in order to secure skill sets that might be needed for an organization. There's a bit of a brain and skill drain that happens as baby boomers start to retire and age out of many of their jobs. And some of those jobs are going to be hard to fill because the skill set has evolved in one direction while the work is still remaining in another. So trying to find that balance and making sure that some valued employees maintain and stay on their work, stay at work is a kind of a hard thing. So the book does go over a few of the employment laws. The Civil Rights Act, equal opportunity is talked about there. The affirmative action is discussed in the book. So is ADA, the protection of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which feels like it's been around for forever. It was just put into place in 1990 and then expanded a little bit in the early 2000s. So there's a lot to be said for hiring folks that have different work needs in terms of enhancing and really truly diversity is a key in many organizations with regards to different genders, different religions, different ethnic backgrounds, different capabilities across the board are all regarded with, what they can bring to organizations. So making sure you have the coverage from the law. Okay, so the human resource planning process is basically what they try to do with a company is list the inventory of what needs need to be fulfilled by the human resource in an organization. Then what they'll do is they'll work with respective management to ensure that they have a proper understanding of the of job analysis. So basically what they'll do is they will inventory the type of skill sets that are needed. I just realized you're all looking at I had a leak in my roof last week, and it's not fixed yet. So yeah, that's you buy an old house, you fix an old house. Looking for the third thing that they would look for is what is the future demands for the human resources as this needs to. So we're looking at growth potential. If you live in an area where there's not a supply of that skill set, then you might have to go out of the area, or perhaps allow some flexibility with remote workers in order to have that skill set for your organization. And then they develop basically the human resource strategy. When it comes to job analysis, what they should be doing is looking at titles, looking at descriptions, looking at specifications for what's involved in doing the respective jobs. Recruitment is bringing the right people in the right number to be able to support the business. There's a lot of different ways that this whole area has changed greatly over the last 20 years or so with the usage of job boards and electronic, sorting and using keyword searches and things like that. It's good and bad. There's some things that if all a company does is use keyword searches and they're not looking at the people involved, then they're probably going to miss some good candidates. So they have to use a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Sometimes they'll do employee recruitment. They'll give finder's fees to people inside. If you know somebody who's very much like yourself, they might be a good fit, and they would never have passed the muster of a keyword search because maybe they didn't have a degree or whatever the case may be, but they're working on things. There is stiff competition in some areas of the country, and some areas, some businesses, where basically they are trying to all recruit a very small subset of people who have specific skill sets. So, sometimes it drives salaries up. Sometimes it allows for creativity and other forms of compensation with, different benefits and the like. So if you are lucky enough to be in a field where it's highly sought after, then that's oftentimes helpful to have your salary go up. We have the selection process and the steps to basically have your selection process go through. So many times you have one or two interviews, you hire somebody, you click, you go. Other times it could take 3 or 4 interviews, panel interviews, which are arduous to go through, employment background checks. So, are you going to allow people into your organization if they have, a couple of check marks, bad marks on their employment history, or whatever the case may be? It could be the case where it just wasn't a good fit in the past. On the other hand, it could be indications of a problem. So there's things to think about in this space. Many companies will still do drug tests. They'll do credit score checks. They'll do criminal background checks. So depending upon the kind of industry you have, the sensitivity you have to your clients and things like that, you might have to run these checks to have insurance, basically, that you're dealing with somebody who doesn't have a criminal record. Maybe there's some industries where having a criminal record, it's neither here nor there. But there's some places where, if you're going to be handling money, if you're going to have your employees go into people's homes, those types of things where you would have liability, then it would probably be in your best interest to conduct some kind of background checks. Most companies do some kind of probationary period, 30, 60, 90 days, to see how you do on the job. And then after that, they'll start maybe the 401k match or something like that, or start to give you your time off. So it's just something to think about. It's kind of, you can, it's long enough to get past the honeymoon period and to see how somebody really works. Contingency workers, the gig economy, GIG, basically is for people who, some people would like to just remain in the gig economy. Sometimes it pays a little better. Basically, these are people who work temporary or part-time, seasonal, that type of thing. And sometimes they enjoy that. They would rather work on short assignments and, just work 6 or 8 or 10 months out of the year and then take some time off. Sometimes these folks make a little more money because the whole framework that they work in is a little bit risky. Some employers prefer a gig economy. This way they can flex both in and out their workforce as needed. And then they don't necessarily have to worry about benefits and that type of thing, especially if it's a contingent worker. More and more people are doing this type of work. A lot of students do contingent work while they're in college. They can make a little bit more money working fewer hours. That sometimes helps them. Training and development. So this is something that a lot of employees feel is very important. If the employer will invest in the employee, there's usually there's the chance that the employee will be a little bit more loyal to the employer going forward. It can be used as a reward to high-performing employees to help them gain more skill sets and move up through the ranks. The training should be something that they will be able to use in the organization. So training for the sake of training is never worthwhile. And it should be able to help an employee become more effective. You have a lot of different ways to train. You can have on-the-job training. You can have desk side training side by side. You can offer online classes. You can offer full classes where somebody comes in and trains your workforce. And also your managers should get trained. So just not your skilled workers, but management can always stand to learn a little bit more about the workforce and how to be a better manager. You're dealing with people, which is not always easy. So let's just talk a little bit about why people quit their jobs. So one of the aspects in the chapter is to talk about retention. Why do people quit their jobs? Especially if they're good people. If the bad people you don't mind, you say, oh, thank goodness they're gone. But for good people, when they leave, it can really present a problem for management. So primary reason that people quit their job is because of management. People do not necessarily quit companies, they quit managers. This is a well-known, saying that people say, the company was fine, I just couldn't stand my management. That's usually one of the primary reasons why people leave. Second reason why people leave is because there's very limited advancement. If you hire smart people and you don't give them anything to do with their intelligence and their motivation, they will become discontented and they will seek fulfillment elsewhere. That's usually what happens. Third, fourth on the list is probably salary. If you're underpaying your staff, it will eventually catch up to you. People will leave because of that. They'll leave if they have inadequate benefits. So if you're doing something like not giving your people who work 38 hours a week the chance to buy into your benefit pool, you might find that those people will start to leave. Maybe they do want to work full-time. Many companies get around this by classifying full-time as either 28 or 32 hours. And what that'll do is that'll allow people to buy into the full-time benefit packages and not necessarily have to deal with working a 40-hour work week. A lot of people just get bored and they move on. So, there's a lot of things to consider about why somebody left. if you want to go through the process of having exit interviews, sometimes those types of face-to-face kind of meetings can be very revealing with regards to what you should be doing in your organization. How to find people, we're back to that again. A network, make sure that you constantly have your if you're in a trade where you have a networking community in your area, join those clubs. Make sure that you reach out to them. If you're a small business owner, try your Chamber of Commerce, go to networking events to meet people and to establish contacts. Sometimes you might find somebody who's looking for a little bit of work or who has work that they can share with you, and that's a source of growth opportunity for your organization. Now let's talk about everybody's favorite thing, which is job appraisals and performance evaluations. There's a lot of negative and positive to the process. People use the adages, you should never be surprised with your performance evaluation. Very true. You should have a constant dialogue with your employees and your workforce to make sure that they know what's going on. They should not come into a meeting on every half a year and find out that you're not happy about them. If you're not happy about them, they should be told all along. And then conversely, if you are happy with their performance, they should also know that, so that they're not sitting there wondering if they're not doing something right. A lot of times this is the opportunity to tell someone how they're doing, to give them some reinforcement, to offer them a career path that will lead to promotion or advancement in their career. Many times there's a tie-in to performance and compensation. That's always interesting to play out. Some companies give everybody 2% across the board and it doesn't matter, and then 6 months later they start promotions. They try to separate the annual increase from a person's performance. Make sure that when you're doing evaluations that you're clear in your communication, that you have set a set of standards and you're measuring people against standards that are reasonable and understandable. Make sure you communicate those standards to folks. Use very specific instances. Don't say your performance is generally good. You have to say things like, in March of this year, you produced a new report and it helped to enhance the communication that went out to major stakeholders for a project. That type of specific feedback is very, very important. If you do have to have an employee if you happen to have an employee that needs corrective action, you need to spell it out what the issue is. You can't say you just don't communicate. That's not an effective set of behavior where corrective action could take place. What you have to do is be very specific and say something like, what I've noticed is that when you communicate verbally, you do that quite well. However, I've noticed that when you communicate on email, that you seem to have very scattered communication style. And what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to send you to an email writing class so that you can learn how to organize an email or organize your thoughts in the written fashion in a condensed version to be able to get the information that you need effectively. So make sure that you're very, very specific. Always identify areas of improvement and training. Every employee should have some kind of a career development plan. So even if you have even if you're a dog walker or a baker or whatever the case may be, you might have somebody who does cupcakes very well, but maybe the next step in your bakery is that they start making wedding cakes or whatever the case may be, or you allow them to come up with original designs or new flavors. These types of opportunities where people can enhance themselves. For a dog walker, it might be okay, we set you into people's houses that have one dog and a bird. Next time we send you out, we're going to send you into a situation where either a different type of animal or bigger animal, maybe learn to work with exotics and things like that, so that you can expand your core basic offerings, that type of thing. So use the opportunity for performance evaluation to very, very positive. Alrighty, let me see. Compensation. Types of pay. excuse me, financial, of course, bonus plans, profit sharing plans, 401k matches. These are all very important. Stock options, things like that are all different ways to compensate someone monetarily. Then you can have non-monetary perks, which basically will include things like flexible time, holidays, vacation, time off for volunteerism, perhaps some kind of social events, training, those types of things. And don't forget healthcare, because people that's the primary way that people do get healthcare, is through their employers. You can expand that with things like legal care, pet care, employee satisfaction, or support programs for those people who might need that. You also have the ability to exercise flexible work schedules. So there's a few types of those. Some people allow work from home, compressed work schedules, or rotating work schedules, flex time. All of those are extremely expensive. And then there's also considerations for commute, and those types of things. Some people are driving a tremendous amount of time to get to work, and giving them any kind of consideration, bonus, or discounts for gasoline or fuel or whatever the case may be, or ride share, is all considered part of a good perk for organization. And the last thing that we have to talk about here is, what do you do when somebody is ready to move out of your company? So, somebody who has finished their tenure on their own accord or yours still deserves, hopefully, the respect and consideration. If someone is retiring and has given a valuable service to your organization, make sure that that's recognized. If someone is leaving your organization because they're moving out of the area or moving on, make sure that you, have the gratitude for what they did provide your organization. Sometimes that little bit at the end, right when someone is getting ready to leave your organization, still can have goodwill with regards to them recommending maybe someone who's equally as skilled or better to join your organization. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you have to get rid of somebody, but you really sometimes you do. Anyway, that's just about it for HR for chapter 11. Like I said, some good information in there, and give it a read, especially if you're serious about having a business and having employees. It's important information. Thank you.